Hello everyone. Before you mention it in the comments, yes, I know that my voice sounds like if Moist Critical and Jar Jar Binks were fighting to be my voice, yet somehow they were both losing. That's partially because of puberty, but also because I'm using a different mic. Which one do you prefer? This one or the one I used in my last video? Anyways, enjoy the video. If you ask anyone their thoughts on the Explorer sneak peek, they'll most likely say it was decent at best. But is that really the case? And if so, why? Well, there are a few reasons why we were kind of disappointed when we initially saw the sneak peek. But first, let's actually analyze the level. We start off with the cube section, just like every other main level in the main game. We are immediately greeted with this pretty easy looking cube timing, right into an orb. Now, this is the all-new spider orb. If you're not caught up with the 2.2 sneak peeks, and you're entering the level blind, then you'll probably instantly die here because this orb is not a buffer click. But after a few attempts, you'll probably learn how it works. Also, one thing to note is that the spider orb in the 2.2 sneak peek is not how it's showcased in Twitter. It doesn't invert your gravity. Maybe there's an option to set it to invert your gravity, but in the sneak peek, that's not the case. We can see that because we're in normal gravity, and if this orb behaved like it was showcased on Twitter, then you would switch your gravity and fly up into the abyss of darkness, which is a fate worse than death. Anyways, thanks to RobTop, we actually continue on the normal path. Now, the direction that the orb sends you isn't decided by these arrows right here, which you can probably rotate in the editor, but this does leave quite a few questions unanswered. Is this an edit special kind of thing, or just simply a rotate kind of thing? I guess we'll find out when 2.2 comes out. Also, this is the only orb in the game with no colorblind texture, or at least that we know of. Or maybe a better way to phrase it is that it's automatically enabled by default and you can't really disable it. The reason this happens is because the texture is used to sight read levels. Without it, levels would be quite difficult to sight read, you'd have to learn them. Now that we covered up the spider orb, let's continue with the rest of the sneak peek. In the next part, we learned that the spider orb can reverse your gravity too. Then we hit the gravity warping glow pads, which were introduced in the level before this, Dash. Then you click the strange orb, and you get teleported to the top. You have enough time to react, but is this a new orb, or is this just the trigger orb from 2.1? Well, in closely reviewing it, it's a bit different. So is this its own orb? Well, probably, but I don't really know. I gotta say, it would be pretty convenient if it was a new orb. Then we fall into this invisible gravity portal, or do we? Well, a few videos ago, I basically confirmed that this isn't just an invisible gravity portal. Rather, it's mixed with a force block that just forces you slightly so you can actually make it to the other block. For a more in-depth explanation, watch the video I made about it. It's only like a 2-minute watch and I would really appreciate it. Link in the description. Speaking of links in the description, I have a Discord now, so if you're interested, consider joining. Also, if you like what you see and want to view more analytical videos in the future, consider liking and subscribing. It really does help out a ton. Thank you. Then, we fall into the Mario tubes that launch you up. You click this actual diagonal trigger orb that activates the exit portal. We can tell the exit portal is activated because it turns blue. But, 2 of the other exit portals aren't activated by a trigger orb. In fact, they're gray, not blue, so that means they're disabled, right? You can go through them. Now this is a game-breaking bug that needs to be fixed before 2.2 comes out. I'm really counting on you, Rob. Then, you do a bit of gameplay that's not interesting at all, and then we make it into the fun part. Pretty much every single complaint about this level is in this part. Let's get straight into it. From now on, I'm going to focus on the gameplay the most since that's the part that everyone's complaining about. But if you really have to know, I think the decoration's alright. It works well. We start off as a spider, which I don't really have a problem with. Then he goes into this portal and blindly teleports to the bottom part. Then he does some vertical gameplay, and once we reach the top, the speed blindly changes and we turn into a mini cube. With barely any time to react, you're forced to do some quick jumps. Then the camera rotates and you turn into an upside down big ship going backwards. Then you turn into a right side up mini wave going vertically, then a mini cube in reverse gravity going backwards, then into a mini spider going forward. Yeah, I think you can see the problem that most people have with this part. My problem with the level isn't that it's a memory part, it's because of the blind gameplay. This part really isn't traditional memory. Like, imagine you're playing a memory demon, but every few seconds your gameplay changes randomly. That's just bad game design. Okay, enough me waffling about this part. Let's move on to the next part. Then we move on into this cube part, which sounds like it has the same problem as the part before. But unlike the other part, this one is actually sight readable. I don't think complaining about this part is warranted, since it's quite obvious where you have to go. Right as we're about to reach the shop, Scratch rudely interrupts us and says, actually, I need my secrets. So then we don't see the rest of the level. So, is this level that bad from what we saw? Well, it isn't the best, but it's fine. I think it was kind of overhated. The level itself was decent, but the community collectively agreed that the explorers needed to be reworked. Now, if all of us go back to have another look at the level, I don't think we'll hate it as much. Why? Well, let me start nerding out a little bit. Okay, the first sneak peek was pretty much perfect. It was hyped out a lot and there were no expectations, so we ended up liking it a lot. When that sneak peek ended, we had a pretty heavy expectation for what was to come. Then, the Explorer sneak peek dropped. Those expectations weren't quite met. The level was too gimmicky, unlike the first one. And since we didn't have any expectations for the first one, we found Dash very good. But since Dash was so good, the expectations were raised for Explorers. It felt quite weak in comparison, since I still think Dash is a superior sneak peek. Explorers lowered the expectations a bit, so that's why we found the third sneak peek really good. Now, let's say Dash and Explorers swap places. What would happen? Well, since Explorers is a slightly weaker level, then expectations wouldn't be that high for the second sneak peek, which in our case is Dash. Then, Dash would end up delivering on those expectations. A lot of these levels are overrated or underrated, based on hype really. So whenever you see a new sneak peek of everything, see a new level that's coming out or you've been waiting for, take it with a grain of salt. Also, quick side note, Robtop did say he will be updating the level, so I can't wait to see how he changes it when 2.2 actually comes out. Thanks for watching, consider liking and subscribing, that would help out a ton. Social in the description, yeah, peace.